Hey there everyone, one of my real obsessions is Mount Everest. In fact, I even have a picture of Mount Everest on my phone. That's how obsessed I am. Now, Mount Everest is named after a man named George Everest, funnily enough.
That's the correct pronunciation,
Pronounced Everest. So we have 3 things here in the Royal Society archives that all relate to George Everest. Let's start with this first one. This is a book, and you can see on the spine it says Everest or Everest Azimuths. It's basically a little bit boring. It is just table after table of numbers and calculations, which are very helpful when you're doing trigonometry and surveying mountains, but it doesn't make for fascinating videos on YouTube. But eagle-eyed Keith showed me a letter in the front of this book written by Everest himself. Keith, what's going on here? What is George Everest doing? I'm going between Everest and Everest.
This is information that he's compiled really to help himself as part of the Great Trigonometrical Survey of India. And of course, this is the big project that he was involved in, and the mountain, therefore, is part of that story. He says, I hope the original may not be left to the merciless fingers of the printer's devils. So what he's saying is that, as you can see, this manuscript is very detailed, very tiny. It's exactly the sort of thing where a printer would introduce errors into the calculations here and the tables here. So he's hoping that's not going to happen.
Now, there's another letter here, which we'll look at just quickly. Here we go. Another one of these fabulous collections of correspondence that you find here at the Royal Society. I mean, this is so exciting to me, something written in the hand of the man whose name, if nothing else, is incredibly iconic. And again, it seems to be about the Trigonometric Survey in India.
Yeah, so he's appealing to the Royal Society for support for some work here.
As you know, Keith, I do collect autographs. I do have Edmund Hillary's autograph, who was the first man to summit Everest. I don't have George Everest's autograph, and I never will. So I have to say, I'm a little bit jealous that you've got that. There it is. I could just snip that out with a pair of scissors.
People did that in Victorian times. We have envelopes full of signatures. Yeah, really? Autograph collectors would do that kind of thing. And quite often it meant losses to archival collections. So bad, Brady.
I would never do that. I would never do it. Anyway, let's crack on. This last one, though, is really interesting. Oh, I can't remember where it is. Do you remember?
Again?
Oh, you've done it again. Keith, you're so organised.
I know, efficient or
Mr.
what?
Bookmark, you are. This is, again, a letter from George Everest. It's dated October 1844, and he's written it to John Herschel, who's
very big deal.
As big as you get at that time, I would imagine. Now, when I read the index card upstairs, basically what came across is that this would be a letter from George Everest to Herschel saying that he went to a meeting, he missed out on seeing Herschel, and he was just writing a letter to say, sorry I missed you. I thought that was going to be pretty boring. Turns out, it's a bit more interesting than that. Everest writes, My dear sir, I went to the York Association, buoyed up chiefly by the hope that I might have the pleasure of meeting you there, and to my infinite disappointment found my journey insofar undertaken in vain. So basically, I went there and you weren't there. I greatly hoped to express to you my regret that there should ever have been the semblance of a cause for disagreement between us. He's not just gone to see him, like to say good day. It looks like there's been some sort of problem between the two of them. That's what's being hinted at here.
That has.
So Everest says here that he hoped to offer his hand in token of reconciliation and oblivion. So basically, he'd gone there to make up with Herschel.
That's right.
To bury the hatchet, to fix up whatever was going on.
Wipe the slate clean of what's gone on between them.
And this letter continues, again, for quite some time, saying nice things about Herschel, wanting to sort of clear the air. Keith, you're going to have to help me one more time here. You only read this part to me once.
Okay.
So what's that part?
So, what further need?
It ends up here. What further need I say than that I hope... What the hell? No wonder he was falling out with people. I can't read a word he says. What further need I say than that I shall be happy when I next have the pleasure of seeing you, basically, on terms of friendship. So Everest is saying, I can't wait to see you again, and we'll be mates again.
That's right. I mean, it's really a piece of diplomacy between two senior scientists.
It's a peace offering. Who is this useful to? I can't see how this could contribute to science as such.
It contributes to the history of science from the point of view that this particular episode might be interesting to a scholar. However, to a biographer, this is fascinating. It tells you something about Everest the man. And that in itself is worth knowing, the personalities behind the great stories.
So you think maybe they're saying this microscope belonged to a bit of a microscope hero just to make it sound better?
It is. He wrote several classic 18th century books on the microscope.
Okay. Do you know where to start? Do you know how to...
Well, it's kind of obvious because the box is actually the base of the microscope. So you can see straight away that what happens is you just screw your microscope onto the box. So this is the as you correctly said, the business end. So now you kind of almost got a microscope.